Okay, I think you can see it. All right. So, as Ali briefly introduced me, my name is Arva. I'm a pediatric trainee. I'm a pediatrician now based in Cambridge. I've started working in the NHS since 2021. And before getting my first job, I did my clinical attachment in Leicester in neonatology department because I was always interested in pediatrics and I knew what I wanted to do. And I chose doing my clinical attachment in neonatology rather than in any other departments. The different perspective, like point of my experiences, I did my clinical attachment after I found a job, which I will explain the reasons for in a second. But yeah, I also did a medical elective program when I was a medical student, which has a sort of like similar application process and arrangement process similar to the clinical attachment. So I will talk through that experience a bit because I think it is partly relevant. Yeah, if you have any questions, just put them in the chat box. At the end of the presentations, both our presentations, we will also have a little section that we will kind of try to address your questions. But feel free to put your questions in the chat box. We will try to answer them while we are going through presentations. So the clinical attachment, just to give you a little bit of summary, because we always try to start from the basics while we are doing these webinars, accepting that some of you had never had a similar experience before. So a clinical attachment is basically an opportunity to kind of gain work experience in medicine in the NHS and to gain an overview of the medical processes and the systems in the UK. This usually lasts for about a month, but depends on the departmental needs and your needs as well. Can be up to a couple of months too. People may prefer different settings and sort of durations depending on the discussions going through that process. It is an unpaid process. You need to be aware of that. I particularly highlight that whenever I have a chat with an IMG colleague. And it is a work placement, but you may need your observation. So you are not getting involved in procedures or seeing patients actively by yourself. And you are usually being attached to a person, usually a consultant, as your supervisor to kind of assess the process, have some sort of meetings and get the most, make the most of the process mainly. And this person is usually the consultant you contacted with initially. People try to do that clinical attachments in the specialty that they are applying to work in, if that makes sense. So because they usually, if they're in the process of job applications, whichever specialty they are interested in, they try to do that attachment in that specialty so that they can speed things up in that job application process. So what are the duties? Mainly, as I said, it is the duties and the responsibilities are limited to observation and mainly seeing how things are done, how the system is working. You observe the consultations, you participate in patient administration, watch how things are being done, maybe watch the systems, how the other doctors' colleagues are using the systems.
Hi, Arwa.
You can sometimes take patient histories. When I did my attachment, I attended ward rounds and helped a little bit in the documentation in the ward rounds as well. But they were mainly under observations. Even they were under observation. So I assume they are likely to be taking histories are likely to be under observation as well. Because I was in neonatology and there is no such process of taking histories in the neonatology because they're babies were already admitted from deliveries or for some reasons from postnates. We didn't take histories, or I didn't get involved in taking histories mainly, but I assume that will likely to be under observation as well. You can get involved in physical examination, some sort of clerking processes as well. Again, they should be under observations ideally, and I would expect that to happen in wherever you do your clinical attachment. You can attend theater surgeries, procedures. I mean, observe. When I say attend, I mean observation. There shouldn't be any limitation in that unless you kind of, you apply the main sort of like you respect the main rules and team working dynamics there. So there shouldn't be a problem in observing that sort of like procedure and surgeries as well. So in terms of the reasons of doing clinical attachments, the main reason for the people to do clinical attachment is to find the job as quick as possible, because that wasn't the main. I mean, the job applications, non-training job applications were always competitive, but it's getting more and more competitive these days. And I feel like most of the people are preferring to do clinical attachments to speed things up, which is quite expected from my point of view. That is the first reason, as per my observation. The second one is people might need to kind of get familiarized with the NHS and how the system works in the NHS. Some people are just feeling more and more comfortable with it when they just do have a smooth transition in the process, which is why I also did my clinical attachment, even though I did find a job before the clinical attachment. So these are the reasons, but there are some downsides as well, because clinical attachments, I hear stories about organizations, trust, hospitals making the IMGs pay for clinical attachments. When I did my medical elective, because it is a medical elective and it's kind of not free in the UK, I did pay an acceptable amount of money to the university, because I went there as a student, but I didn't pay anything for my clinical attachment, which was a situation in the UK 2.5 years ago mainly. But now I think it's getting more and more expensive, and I feel like organizations try to take advantage of the situation. So it can be quite a financial burden for some of you guys. I can appreciate that, and the other downside would be time management, some sort of family responsibilities and commitment if you have people that you need to look after. And I think one of the common issues is the visa issues for IMGs, which I can again appreciate. So these are the downsides. So unfortunately, not everyone has the ability to do a clinical attachment, which I'm sure you are already aware of. And this is why I think Job Clerk is trying to make the process easier for you and more accessible, which I think Ali is going to go through later on at the end of our two presentations. So just wanted to talk about a bit about my experience very briefly. So again, I quite a few times repeated in the presentation. I did a medical elective in pediatric endocrinology in Glasgow when I was a medical student. And then I did a clinical attachment in neonatology department in 2021 in Leicester University Hospitals NHS Trust. So I graduated in 2020. Then after a year, I completed all the exams and the registration process. And I was very quick in finding a job too. But because of the admin process, you know how long they can take sometimes. I had a bit of time in the UK to spend, like I think it was about a month and a half. And I thought instead of just spending some time at home, I can just go and do some clinical attachments, get some exposure to pediatrics, because I was going to apply to training at the same time. So my reason was purely to get some experience in the NHS and get familiarized myself to the system. So I didn't have any intention to find a job in the neonatology department at that point. And the same reason goes for the medical elective as well. I was a medical student and I wasn't having any intention to come to the UK at that point. And because I was considering it as one of the options, I came to the UK to see how NHS is working, and then did my elective program in pediatrics and loved it, and then decided to come to the UK. So in terms of how I did decide the location, hospital and department, in terms of medical elective, I did decide because my main interest was pediatric endocrinology, and I was reading one of the consultants' research about one certain condition. I knew that consultant was very good in his specific field, and I emailed him, and I was lucky he was very quick in replying back to me, and I got a post in medical elective, so that was very quick, and I was a little bit lucky. I think I found the right person in the right time. So you can, what you can do, and you can get from my experiences, I think, try to be very certain, sort of use a very certain language when you try to reach out to the people. I can appreciate that you may not have any interest at the moment, and you can welcome any opportunities in any department right now, because you may not be able to find a job for a quite long time. So when you email to those people, just try to be very specific, saying that you are considering a job option in that specialty. This is why you want to do an attachment, and also you didn't have any job experience before. You want to get some exposure to the NHS and the system in the UK. So location-wise, this is kind of how I choose a department. And location-wise, I think the wise choice would be in that economical circumstances for most of you guys would be maybe aiming some places which can be potentially cheaper, especially if the hospitals are demanding a fee for the clinical attachment posts. You can see, it is difficult to find a certain location. I can understand that, because you may not know the country at all. But I mean, the main thing you can do is just try to have a chat with people living in that certain locations, and you may want to try to be close to your friends, to the people that you have been knowing for a while, for a certain time. So try to prioritize your well-being and economical well-being, if that makes sense, in that point of view. And London is the city which has lots of options, because there are lots of hospitals there. But again, it's expensive. So you need to kind of consider those points and create a plan in your mind which is the most suitable to you. So how to reach out to the people who can accept your application for attachments or elective programs. So they are usually the consultant who are doing the recruitment process in the department. So what I will do is I would go to the specific job application summaries. So at the bottom of the page of the job description, there is an email usually for the consultant that you can ask questions for that specific job position. That person is usually the one who is employing either clinical attaches or the juniors in the department. So try to reach to that person. Or the other option could be you can directly call the hospital and ask for the HR number and speak to them, and then get the specific department's email for yourself. Or for the rota coordinator. So you can contact the rota coordinator, and then that rota coordinator can contact you, put you through to the relevant consultant. When you get, but of course you can't arrange the clinical attachments just by calling the hospital. You need to email to the consultant who is responsible of doing that. So try to send an email to them, very brief email, explaining why you want to do the clinical attachment. Introduce yourself very quickly. Mention your experiences and what you want to do in the UK, whether you had any experiences, and specifically mention that you want to do clinical attachment in that certain period of time, and you are searching for a job, and this is why you want to do clinical attachment, and you would welcome any opportunities, any advice at all. Just mention that points. They will be, most of the people are very welcoming. They would understand. If they don't have any available opportunities, I'm sure they will direct you to someone else. So just don't be afraid of emailing people. Email everyone and ask for the possible opportunity, so they will understand. How to make the most of clinical attachment. So assuming that you started your clinical attachment, you would want to use that opportunity as in the best way as possible. I would say the clinical attachments are usually 9 to 5. They usually put you in specific settings in that department with the other junior doctors. I recently observed, for example, one of the clinical attaches who has been working with us in pediatrics in the hospital I'm working in. And she was, for example, very interested, and she was, even though she was assigned to stay between 9 to 5, she was staying on-call shifts as well. Maybe I think one of the night shifts as well. I'm not really sure, but you can definitely do some similar things. You don't have to stay every day, but maybe just at least 1-2 night shifts, or maybe long day on-call shifts, on-call parts of the long shifts. So you can try to do that just to see how things are working on the on-call shifts, because 9 to 5 shifts may not be realistic and may not show you all the aspects of the job. So I specifically mentioned that, but you will be assigned to a consultant supervisor. Usually this person will be the one you initially contacted. So interact with them, arrange a start meeting, and then end of the placement meeting, just to ask about the possible opportunities, speak, sort of like discuss your experiences, etc. Definitely ask for an audit program, audit project, or QIP, quality improvement project, to join in. I mean, if you get any job offer from the place that you are where you are doing the clinical attachment, you can continue on working on that project. Or if your clinical attachment is quite long, then you can even finish one project while you are working, doing clinical attachment there. I will definitely ask for the timings of the teaching rotas, join them, and maybe in fact also deliver a teaching presentation session. That there is no wrong in doing that. So ask the consultant whether you can do it. I'm sure they will be welcoming. So you can just get a tick box. You can just tick one of the boxes off, and you can have some teaching experiences as well. And you can get some feedback from the people, because when you start your junior level job, you will be doing so many teaching sessions to either to medical students or to the department. So you will be definitely more comfortable if you had some experience in the NHS. See the different settings like clinicals, wards, ward rounds, theatres, whatever the department has, basically, because if you haven't had any chance to see any of them, let your consultant know, so that they can try to get you more involved in that opportunity, sort of particular settings. And definitely make friends, talk to other trainees, trust doctors, find out about their experiences, listen to their stories and available opportunities as well. They are usually the most closest people that you can ever chat with, and they can understand what you are going through. And the most important thing, make your intentions very clear. Don't hesitate to say that you are looking for a job, and this is why you are doing your clinical attachments. Because if you never mention it, they might be looking for a junior, but they may not know whether you consider starting to work in the NHS in a certain time of period. So you just need to tell them that you are looking for an opportunity to work in the NHS for your first job, and you are ready to start whenever the opportunity is available. So they might even just open a position for you. So you never know. So you have to mention that as well. Yeah, I think these are all my sort of advices in terms of how you can make the most of the clinical attachment experience. And I will, I think, leave the stage to Jem now. If you have any questions, put in the chat box. These are the first one is our email that you can contact through with us, and the other one is the Job Clerk website. Adi is going to take you through some of the bits in a bit, and hope it was useful. Thank you.
Hi, can everyone hear me? Oh, that's great. Yes. Okay. So I think we both created a very similar presentation with Arwa. So let me share my screen. Arwa, if you could just cancel your sharing?
I'm trying, sorry.
That's okay. So in the meantime, let me tell you about myself. So I graduated in 2017.
Sorry, Jem. I think you can, if you share your screen, it will directly
Okay.
start showing your screen instead of mine. So maybe try that one because I can't stop mine.
Yeah. Okay. So is this okay?
Yes.
So how many screens do you see?
I think it's completely fine.
Okay then. All right, so I will talk about myself. My name is Jem. I have graduated in 2017 and in Turkey. I worked several years in Turkey, and then I started to take plubs. And after taking plubs, before finding a job, I did an attachment in Basildon University Hospitals. Exactly, it was 2 years ago now. So our presentations are very similar. So I will skip some of the slides. So what is it? As you know, as explained, it's an unpaid placement, and mostly you will be doing observation. And some of the people can do it from abroad, like most of us, to get some NHS experience, and some of the people can do it after some breaks in practice in medicine, and some of them just can do it, try different things. So some people ask, how long is it? Usually it is for 4 weeks, but in my experience, after 4 weeks, I wasn't able to secure a job and I wanted to stay there a little bit more. So I talked to another consultant and I was able to manage, extend my attachment for 2 more weeks. So it is possible that it can be more than 4 weeks, up to 8 weeks, actually. So, and I mentioned about these, so I'm skipping these parts. You can do mostly observation, and you can do physical examinations, of course, after getting some approval from your supervisor or consultant. So what are the benefits? For me, it was highly valuable because I hadn't had any NHS experience before, and I had no idea about the ward-based jobs. I did my attachment in acute medicine, and I had some experience in A&E, so it was really different for me. And so because of that, I saw a lot of different things in terms of ward rounds and how to admit patients and clinical cases as well. And also, I was able to create a little network there because most of the juniors were really helpful, and most of them were IMGs as well. So they were knowing what I was going through, so they were really helpful. And of course, after doing a clinical attachment, it gives a little bit boost to your CV. It doesn't secure a job, but it is useful to show that you have seen NHS and you had some experience, and you can show that by doing an attachment. So who can apply for clinical attachment? So basically, if you are a qualified doctor in your country, you can apply. But of course, some trusts have different policies. You need to check this with every other trust. So probably they will mention this when you're applying or emailing them. So what are the requirements for a clinical attachment? This list is for myself. I needed to give these. So CV, of course, you need to create a good CV. So for this, for a structured CV, you can use BMA's scheme. And of course, for this, you can go to Job Clerk as well. It's free. You can just download it after filling your credentials. And certificate of qualification, this is your medical diploma, basically. Two references, either you're in UK or in your home country, just give two doctors who can say good things about you. This is not a big thing, but still you need to provide something. And verification of immigration status and police check. This is basically just police check. Most of us who are coming from a different country, you can get it from police station. And of course, English proficiency, OET or IELTS. And in my case, passing PLAB 1 was a requirement. But at that moment, I think I had already, yeah, I had passed the both PLABs and I had the GMC registration. So I was looking for a job at the same time as well. And after going there, you would need to sit with occupational health department for a clearance. But before doing that, they might ask you to provide some vaccination history and blood tests, which is really useful to provide because otherwise you might pay for these tests when you come to UK. So what are the costs? Like I was said, it can change. The trusts charge now. Some trusts are free, some charge like 600. And you would be having some expenses there as well. It depends on your lifestyle, but if you're in London, it will be expensive. Like I was said, try to choose somewhere cheaper, but if you don't have any choice, no one can blame you. And accommodation. This also depends. Some hospitals have hospital accommodation, which in my case, I stayed in hospital accommodation, which wasn't very good, but also it was really affordable. So I stayed there for 40 days, and otherwise I would be really bankrupting. So if the hospital has option to accommodate you, that would be great. And other costs as well. If you are coming from out of country, visa fees, flight tickets, and medical indemnity is not mandatory, but it is a good thing to have when you are doing your attachment. If something happens or if they ask your statement for an incident, it is good to ask someone. I don't know how much it costs. I think you need to speak to them one-to-one. But in my case, I didn't do it. Nothing happened, but it's indemnity and it's good to have. And you can have different expenses as well, like courses. When I was doing my attachment, I also spent one of my days in ALS course, which was really useful because it showed my dedication to my consultant at that time as well. So I just asked for his opinion, and then he said, "You can go, of course." And then I took that course there. So this was another expense, but it was useful. Yeah, so everyone's asking how to find it. Everybody explained it very well. So basically, the aim is to contact consultants, and the important thing is how to find them. You can find them in the below part of job adverts, or you can contact HRs, or you might be having like little network of yourself, like one of your friends knowing a consultant, and then they can suggest you and you can get an attachment like this, but it is really hard to find. You can find some adverts in NHS jobs, and finally Job Clerk, which Ali will explain to you. You can find the emails there as well. So I tried to go through the most common questions. Do I need to have medical indemnity insurance? Like I said, not mandatory, but it's a good thing to have. You can think about it. and you can ask around. You can ask medical indemnity agencies as well. And how can I maximize my learning during a clinical attachment? So this is really important because your dedication is really important, showing that you are here to secure a job. So engage with the team. In my case, the department had enough juniors, mostly F2s or trust grades, and they were really brilliant and really helpful. And I was asking a lot of questions about the clinical cases, and they were explaining to me. And in the end, I asked if they have any opportunities for doing a clinical audit or KIPS. So one of them just said, I'm doing one and I can include you. Spoke to his consultant for me and they agreed. And this was really good for my CV as well. I went there for a clinical attachment and I was in a clinical audit. I couldn't finish the audit while I was there, but still it was something in my CV. And yeah, and you can also learn a lot from the hospital system, like how NHS works, how the patients are admitting, and what is the waiting time, and how do you treat, and what is the communication between patients and doctors and the nurses. So these are really useful to observe because they might be really different in your home country. So that's the question. Can clinical attachments lead to employment? Yes and no. In my experience, after getting in contact with juniors, I also asked my supervisor, who is a consultant in acute medicine, if they're looking for a trust grade job or anything like that. He said they are not hiring at the moment, and he arranged a meeting for me with an orthopedic consultant. I talked to him. They weren't hiring, but still, it was a good experience. And also, I spoke another consultant. They weren't also hiring, but it was purely luck. So if you're lucky, you can have the job there and that. But if you don't, it's okay because most of the people are not getting the job from the hospital they are doing the attachment. Yeah, this is my experience. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. Yeah, thank you. So now I think Ali will talk about job clerk and how you can find the attachments.
Thank you, Jem. So yeah, I'm just looking if there's any questions that we haven't covered. There's actually a question if you like to share your experience. Someone asked how to secure a job in the place that you are doing the attachment. So I believe you had a friend, right, who's doing attachment at the same time with you and secured a job in the same hospital. Yeah, would you like to share your experience with that?
So yeah, not at the same time, but before a couple of months before me.
Sure.
So she was doing an attachment in obs and gynae. So, and she worked with the consultant very well, and she showed that she has some experience in the department in that specialty, and she was really keen to get the job, and luckily they were hiring at that moment, so she got the job. It's all about your enthusiasm and your engagement with the team, and a little bit of luck if they are in need of junior doctors.
Yeah, thank you. Also, there's a question. It says, would you recommend doing a clinical attachment in radiology? I've been told it's too niche at FY1 SHO level. I mean, in my opinion, I've done a taster week in radiology when I was trying to explore what I would like to do, and taster week would be way better than clinical attachment because in radiology, the skills that you need to ideally gain is like acute approaching emergency cases, how to attend ward rounds and things like that, which is not applicable in radiology. I mean, you can do if you're going to do multiple attachments, but in order to, like, in terms of finding a job, firstly, there is no junior jobs in radiology. And secondly, it wouldn't give you necessary skills or necessary experience in a sense. About second question, what about doing a presentation of a case in clinical attachments? Would you like to answer this, Jim?
I didn't get the question. Presentation?
Yeah,
about...
I think, yeah, like if there would be any chance to do a presentation of a case, maybe a clinical case, maybe something else, maybe like a teaching.
Here or?
The presentation during the clinical attachment. Have you got any chance to do a presentation?
Oh yeah, so there are some, possibly there will be some teaching meetings in the department. If you're doing medicine, probably there will be. And there are some presentations that juniors do, so you can easily ask. I didn't do it, but I think now I think about it, I could do it. It's all about how you present yourself, and you can just ask for it. Totally.
Yeah, sure, thanks. And I'll ask the last question to Erva, and then I'll move on with my presentation. So Turan says, can hospitals give accommodation for medical students seeking clinical attachment free or costly? And how did you arrange your accommodation as a medical student, Erva?
So if you're a medical student, it's not called attachment, it's called elective. And so usually some hospitals, like most of the hospitals, have an accommodation place, accommodation opportunity, yes. But the issue with it is they are not extremely clean or sort of livable, if that makes sense. And they might be as the same price as one of the cheapest options in the city. So in the clinical attachment I did, because I had a job, I had secured my job at that point. I already rented an apartment for myself with my partner, so I had a place to stay in. So, but I think if I would have asked, they would offer me to stay in the hospital accommodation. So you can have a chat about the option to stay in there. The other option is I did use a bit of different method in my medical elective. I think I can't remember exactly, but they didn't offer me the hospital accommodation for some reason. I can't remember at the moment the exact reason, but I asked them whether they would be able to advise me any options near to the hospital, and they gave me some links to the certain accommodations that the students are usually preferring to stay in the city. And I choose one of them, and that was very cheap. And I was in Glasgow, and Glasgow is quite an expensive city. Is one of the most expensive cities in the UK. And that was quite cheap, even cheaper than the hospital accommodation. So you can get advice from the HR or from the consultant even. So really depends, but ask for an advice.
Wonderful, great. Yeah, guys, keep your questions coming. Either we will answer after my presentation, or either Erva or Jem will answer in the chat. So I'll just share my screen in a second. We can give it a go. So the first thing I would say is I put into chat, but I think it's a bit on the top right now. In this section, obviously, you'll see how the system works, but to get the most advantage, you need to be a registered user with Job Clerk. So I'm just gonna share it in the chat. If you like to register while I will explain the system, and then I'll share my screen, just to give you a chance to like get registered, so we can like make it a demo. We can do it together. So as I mentioned in the start, Job Clerk, we are a platform to make it every step of IMG's journey to the UK easier. And the first part was to bring bringing all the jobs together. And then we realized, actually, because finding jobs are getting harder and harder, people are opting for doing an attachment. And we realize that there is a huge issue in terms of finding an attachment. It is quite time consuming, and especially when you are working full time, it's not quite possible to send, like, firstly find the emails and then sending those emails. And so that's what brought this idea to life. So we because we are all collecting all the job information from all different websites, we realize actually we can also collect publicly accessible contact details for consultants and service managers. So hopefully, even if you haven't got a chance to register your account, I'm just going to start sharing my screen, and you can do it later as well if you want to. Okay, cool. Sorry, just a sec. Okay, all right. So maybe we can just start from here. It is www.jobclerk.com. The main function, as I mentioned, is finding jobs. But right now there is a clinical attachment part. You can either when you come to the main page, you can come from here, or if you are already looking for jobs, we put the search for clinical attachments here. So 2019 attachments fund is actually different trusts providing attachments, and there is filters either with country or with the region. So let's say we'll look for London, or we can look for East of England. Yeah, Cambridge University Hospital, that's the hospital we are also working. So you just need to simply go here, or another option is generally if you are again looking for jobs. So you can just select the employer or trust and go to clinical attachment. So okay, here we are. So there are 3 things that you need to do to find a clinical attachment, right? So you need to find the place and the specialty that you want to do. So it can be either very specific, like Arva, like in a very specific place with a very specific person, or you can, and I think that's the most common case, you can have a wide range of options. You can have flexible options. So let's say you want to do one in East Lancashire or one in Cambridge University Hospitals. So it's very simple. You just need to select contact details, and here we are. We have all the specialities. We don't have all the consultant emails because, again, these are publicly accessible emails, and it's gonna expand with time. But right now, there is already thousands of consultant emails in hundreds of hospitals, which will be more than enough to secure whatever clinical attachment you want to do. So it is very simple. You find the email here. You find, I don't know, let's say if you're interested in pediatrics, as you can see, there are already 6 consultants here. Or if you are interested in plastic surgery, there is a lead consultant who is doing the recruitment. The good part about this is, rather than finding a random consultant, the emails here are consultants who are doing the recruitment, who are leading the recruitment. So by sending them an email and by hopefully securing an attachment with them, them being your supervisor might make things easier for you to secure a job as well. Because some consultants are not really not interested or not involved in the recruitment of the department at all. So yeah, it's actually way much better. So the second thing is you need to write an email. So email has 2 parts. The first part is the part you express your interest, the white space. And maybe the most important part is having a well-structured, nicely done CV. So there is something called BMA medical portfolio. So BMA medical portfolio is kind of a example that BMA puts for all medical portfolios. In a sense, it should be very basic. It should be very not fancy at all. It just should have the same structure that people know in the UK, the consultant knows in the UK. So if you go to your more portfolio, again, like very user friendly, you can just simply fill your information, whatever you have in your CV. Don't stress too much. Just put whatever you have, and then you can just download your CV here, and we can have a look at the results. So yeah, this is the CV. It's all automated. There is all about me part, which I've written here. That's also can be generated with AI after putting all the information in your CV, because the AI is best at summarizing things, isn't it? So this is your CV. As you can see, it starts with education, it goes to the work experience, and it goes to the courses, prices, audits, whatever, again, like whatever you put into your portfolio, it will be here. And then again, as I mentioned, this is the first part of the CV, maybe the more important part that you need to do first. And then the second part is the writing an email. So again, as I mentioned, there is no need to do that manually every single time. So what we are enabling you is you just need to put the information about yourself. So I've done a very small one. It's not real, but yeah, I just wanted to like show an example. What I've done is I briefly said I've just recently graduated, which can be the case for some, which might not be the case for others. Not, I don't know, but you can say I've graduated from this university in I graduated in 2021 and completed PLAB exams to register with GMC. I'm looking for a clinical attachment opportunity to improve my understanding in the NHS. So even if you don't do this, the way we structured this AI assistant is it will mention the clinical attachment. But yeah, let's take this out. And I'm planning to pursue a career in surgery. This is the point where Erwa mentioned. So we understand that firstly, you might not have a specific field that you want to pursue a career in. And secondly, you might just want to like email different specialties to increase your chance to get a job. But the important thing is whether you are emailing a surgical department or medical department, plastic surgery, just say that you have an interest to pursue a career because you don't know, maybe you will, maybe you won't, but it will look better. And I mentioned like very small summary because I don't want to make this very huge, which is my advice. But you can put whatever you want to put here. Anyway, so and then let's say again, general surgery will be the specialty that I'm going to email that I'm going to get in touch with the consultant. So it just takes 10 seconds really. So yeah, it just gives you the subject, inquiry regarding clinical attachment opportunity. So yeah, let's have a look. I hope this email finds you well. My name is Ali, and this is very important, which I would like to stress. The consultants are getting hundreds of emails, if not thousands. And it is very important to make your intention very, very clear in subject and introduction. This is same for anything really, but like in this specific case, just make it very clear, just make it very direct in whether it's a medical elective, clinical attachment, whatever it is. And then as you can see, whatever I put into the my about me department section, the RAI system took that. I'm particularly interested in now the Surgery department at your esteemed institution. I'm hoping to secure clinical attachment starting in April with the intention of eventually obtaining a job in the department. That's what I mentioned in the about me part, as you could have seen. I believe that experiencing that Cambridge University will be greatly contribute. So as you can see, you don't really need to do anything to specify or personalize this email, right? So you just need to put the speciality, and we already know which trust you want to email because you're already in the Cambridge University's page or whatever trust page, and our AI system also detects that. And it says, please find my CV attached for your review. I would be grateful for any information regarding available clinical attachment opportunities in the general surgery department. So only thing you need to do really is just after you find out or decided which emails we are going to, which consultants you are going to get in touch. And I am assuming that also you generated your CV already with job clerk. I mean, your structure can be already working for you. But yeah, as I mentioned, this is your chance to get your like UK BMA guided, in a sense, medical CV, medical portfolio, because it shouldn't be fancy as well. Your CV might be right now like looking very nice, very fancy, but like as I'm gonna stress again, in the UK, there is always this part of that there is thing that people would like to see things in the same place, same format, and not in a, to be honest, fancy and different way. And that's all free. If you go to the BMA to get your CV reviewed, it's costs, I think, more than £70. So yeah, that's the whole thing about job clerk. We are trying to make it way more accessible for people, and that's it. I mean, it's just very simple. I mean, it's incredible to be honest for me, and most people will agree. It's like incredible to see how easy this can be. You just need to simply go and let's say this is like a very small trust that they don't publish consultant emails. Most of them they don't. One thing you can do or should do actually go to the more information section or just trying to find the specific information, like at least confirming that, because the disclaimer we put is very important. We don't know the current situation in trust. We will. It's impossible because it's the trusts are always not very transparent about their clinical attachment policy. If we know there's a specific link, there's a specific policy, we put them in the more information, but sometimes there is literally nothing. And your best chance is just like emailing them and see, yeah, what they say. So this is a very small trust children hospital. So there is only very limited emails, but I don't know. If you go to Midlands, and so our previous hospital was University Hospitals of Leicester or Nottingham, for example, a place we know taking lots of attachees, and they offer them a job. So University of Hospital Leicester was a trust we all luckily worked, myself, Arwa, and Jem. So yeah, you can see. So for example, if you're looking for radiology, as someone asked, yeah, you can email to them, but I wouldn't advise doing it as if only one attachment. So yeah, that's all. That's really this simple. And again, it depends on you at the end to send the emails. So we don't send automatic emails for you. We don't think this is the most best thing to do. You always need to double check what's written, what's generated by AI, make the last couple of changes. So you just need to still take maybe 1 to 2 minutes to send one email, but the system is just going to make things way more easier for you. And yeah, that's it. The second part is already told, how you can optimize clinical attachment. And yeah, you just need to go for the opportunities. You need to be very proactive. You came for this clinical attachment to find a job. So just make it visible. Just make it known from the start, because otherwise it's such a shame to spend that amount of money, that amount of time. I mean, we all gone through the similar paths. I couldn't really do an attachment due to financial burden of it. I'll be very honest. In 2021, when I was looking for my first job, I got accepted from the same hospital, the Leicester Infectious Disease Department. And I think that is here we can find the consultant even here, if we have already indexed that. Yeah. So yeah, this was a service manager, and as a consultant there was a Dr. Sohato who accepted me, and I just couldn't do it because it was so costs were so high, and obviously I was a bit luckier because the finding jobs were not this hard at that time. And maybe last thing I would say is, if you are working in your current job, just don't leave that job just to do a clinical attachment. So that's very important. So we are not in this webinar, our aim is not to promote, advertise that people should do clinical attachment. No. What we are trying to say is, if you want to do a clinical attachment, this is the best and easiest way to do it. But doing clinical attachment is not the best option for everyone. So just think about your personal circumstances. Finding job might be hard right now, but just don't get like upset and say that, yeah, I have to do this even though it's going to cost me too much. So you just think about your personal circumstance, and don't leave your current job if you're already employed. Please don't do it. I've seen this, and it's really like, it's really bad, because doing a clinical attachment is not always a guarantee for the job. As Jem mentioned, if they don't have a job going to be advertised, I mean, it can be sometimes very hard to do it, even though you try too much. And in terms of audits and other things, that we have also courses in the platform which are something called CPD accredited. You will get a certificate from the CPD with CPD points, which shows that this training is official and very effective and already approved. Against clinical attachment, this has a bit of cost, but what I can say, you can search for other CPD accredited one-day long courses, and you'd see they cost hundreds of pounds, unfortunately. But what we are trying to do is just make it as easy and as cheap as possible. And I'll just stop sharing here, and we can go to the questions. And if you want to just open your mic, just put your hand. So there is an option to put a hand in Teams, and we can allow you to open your mic. We just don't want to open it for everyone at the same time because of all the background noises that can come through. Yeah, just put into your chat, just put in the chat, or just make it, yeah. Just put your hands. I'm also looking through the questions. It looks already all explained and answered. Okay, yeah. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. We hope that as well. Yeah, we are just starting really. Start with jobs, now clinical attachments, and we have lots of other features that we are developing right now. Thank you. Thank you. That's very kind of you.
Hi, Ali.
Yeah.
Hi, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, one people asked, what if the consultant is really busy? What are we going to do during the attachment? So in my experience, this was the case, and consultant was really busy, and I wasn't getting too much attention from him, but I spent most of my time with other juniors and tried to make useful. And in the end, I was able to get a reference from my consultant, and because he was really good with his juniors and get a good reference from them. So that was useful as well.
Thank you. There is a question that I can take. How many months in advance is required to secure a clinical attachment? So some places give like very exact timelines, and that's generally between 2 to 4 months. But thinking about your own logistics, I would say try to give yourself at least 2 months. I mean, this is just very abstract, but like if you don't have a visa requirement, obviously, yeah, 1 month can be also okay. But like if you have a visa requirement, 2 months would be better. Also, you just need to consider that in the UK, doing the documentations through HR can be the most painful thing, most slow thing. And so, yeah, but if you are getting in touch right now, I would say and if you are not in like rush, it will be better to just start doing it in 2 months advance, in my opinion, really. Another question. So it's about with a high useful information. Is there any possibility to change the visitor's visa to skill visa if I get a job? It's difficult to travel back and confine. So there's a very, very like hard question to answer. There's been cases that people done that while they're on tourist visa, they got a job, they got a certificate of sponsorship, and they got in touch with the Home Office. But this actually happened during COVID, and yeah, that situation can change quite rapidly, or it's just hard for us to say anything because it's not like a usual thing to do. But yeah, it's been possible from our from our close friends. The next question is: do you think we can go for a less popular specialty like endocrine or infectious instead of most popular ones like gynecology? Because those are thought to get these days. So if you mean if you mean popularity in terms of the number of job openings, yeah, I think you can think like radiology question. So when someone asks if I can do clinical attachment radiology, what I would say is doing an attachment in general medicine, acute medicine, or general surgery if you're interested in surgery, or A&E, definitely might be a better thing to do rather than doing, obviously, infectious diseases or pediatric endocrinology like Erva did. I mean, unless you have like a very, very, unless you're saying, look, I'm just going to do my job only in this specialty, only in this place, then fine. But otherwise, yeah, it will be more, I think, beneficial. But at the end, it's all luck, guys. I mean, you don't know if they're going to open a job or not. So
I think in that matter, you can also start with them, and then you can manage to arrange another one in medicine shortly, because consultants talk to each other, and if you can kindly ask, they might help.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you impress them, if you impress the team, if you make good connections, although it's hard to do it in 2, 3, or 4 weeks, and consultants might be your like friend, might be just send people emails for you. So the second other question from Osan, it says, in the current situation, is it better to do a clinical attachment at a top hospital? Guys, there is no top hospital in the UK. So if you mean the size of the hospital, the biggest hospital is University Hospital of Birmingham with 22,000 staff, and then other hospitals, probably you wouldn't even heard it if I go through the list. I know every single hospital's staff number to the ward numbers to their staff recruitment, and which is also available at the job clerk. But what I would say, just don't think about the hospitals that you know with names like Cambridge or King's, because for me personally, I know from Cambridge is one of the places that does the least recruitment in junior. And also, just a second. We'll go through the second question. I'll give the microphone to Erva.
I just want to say something about this top hospital question, sorry. So there is no, like, again, as Ali said, there's no there's no definition for it. Like, I don't know what you mean by that, but as Ali said, the kind of balances are different as what you see from outside the country. So there is a difference between district general hospitals, which are the level 2 hospitals, and then the tertiary centers. And in each region, there is at least a couple tertiary centers usually. Like, for example, where I am working, is the top hospital. I mean, sorry, I think because you said that, I will just keep saying that as well. The tertiary hospital is the Cambridge University hospitals, but there are other tertiary hospitals as well. In London, there are a couple. So there might be a chance of getting more or seeing more positions in those tertiary center units, tertiary hospitals, but there's no guarantee. I think both finding a clinical attachment either in DGHs, district general hospitals, or tertiary hospitals would be beneficial, because you will be working in both of these hospitals anyway when you become a trainee in the future. It's very unlikely for you to just not to work in a DGH or a tertiary center, if that makes sense, because you are going to be a rotational trainee, so it's going to be useful in either case.
Cool. Yeah, again, guys, just think broadly, and yeah, luck. Hopefully, with luck, the hospital, it doesn't really matter. Is it good to arrange my attachment before PLAB2? Is it good to improve my communication skills? And so, well, we can give the microphone to Jem. What Arwa mentioned in the comments was she doesn't advise doing it after or before PLAB2, because it's important to like focus on your like passing the PLAB2 first, because if you can't pass it, it really is not important. But yeah,
So
in terms of improving communication skills or such, yeah, Jem, maybe can I give an answer?
I agree with Arwa, to be honest. I just go, yeah, I went after PLAB2 and my GMC registration. Actually, I got my GMC registration during the beginning of my attachment. In terms of communication skills, yes, it's useful, but I think being ready to get a job at that moment is more important, because you need to get the chance, and you need to be able to seize that chance and secure your job if it is available. And if you do your attachment before PLAB2, and if there's an opening, and if they ask you, you don't have your GMC registration and you miss the job. So I would suggest to go after getting your clearing your PLAB2 and getting your GMC registration.
Yeah, I would advise the same, because also you don't make a good impression in the consultant's eyes. And if you pass your PLAB2 exams, they will be more convinced that you will be coming and working in the NHS. So there's no point in losing time in doing an attachment while you are preparing for the exams, because by the time you pass the exam, they will have forgotten about you, if that makes sense. So just try to arrange that time to kind of to make it suitable. But I mean, try to bring them at the same time, like your PLAB2 exam results at least, and your clinical attachment, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, guys, just think about your personal circumstances. I mean, if you don't have financial constraints, if you are able to jump in and out of the country, if you want to do lots of clinical attachments, lots of travels, yeah, you can. But most of the time, you just need to think like in the most efficient way. Yeah, if you are traveling for PLAB2, and then if you want to do something after, if you don't want to wait for the results, fine, because coming again can be costly. But yeah, just think about your own circumstances. So the next question is, what about 3 to 4 years of clinical gap? How can that affect job opportunity? So this is all about clinical attachment, and we will put a link from our previous webinars, which was all about CV structuring and in like how to find a job. So sorry about that.
Also, I don't think anyone would care about your gap if you are asking in terms of clinical attachment arrangement. So you don't have to mention about your gap. It is important when you are trying to find a job, because there's another question at the bottom. So I just want to address that. So you don't have to mention your gap, or I mean, just mention your experiences and what you want to do. You don't have to just make it too long. Nobody cares about your gap in your past experience if you are asking for a clinical attachment, but job applications are different. So this is just a clinical attachment. So you are not going to touch the patients mainly. So nobody's going to care about it.
Yeah. Clinical attachment is about you getting experience. They don't pay you, and you usually need to pay. So as you can see, they wouldn't get fast about your clinical gap. But it's an important concern for people looking for a job. And we fully sympathize with that. And whole structure of the job clerk is really making it easier for you to just like increase your chances and not get affected by gaps or whatever. Is it better to complete EPIC verification before PLAB 2? Again, this is a clinical attachment webinar. The Facebook group IMGs in the UK has lots of like very great resources in terms of that. But in my opinion, the moment you graduated, the moment you got your diploma, just do your EPIC verification, really. I mean, there is not much of a reason to wait or not wait. Are there any jobs for people with PLAB Part 1? So the jobs, you need a GMS registration, either with PLAB or with membership exams, or there are other very niche routes for specialists, which probably would not be applicable for you. Yeah. And then another question about gap and job. So, I mean, in the most common sense, yes. So, like in terms of your CV, it is like very straightforward question. Yes, it will affect your chance to get a job, but people with gaps will get a job there, and you can. So, but this is not about a job webinar. So Jem is actually putting our previous webinars recording about NHS job application, which you can just watch and try to increase your chances in terms of getting a job. So just don't get hold yourself because you have a gap. Just go for it. I mean, it's life. Life is hard, but if you want to do something, you just need to put the hard work, isn't it? Again, for the clinical attachment as well. But I think with the new feature at Job Clerk, it's not going to be that hard to secure a clinical attachment anymore. Cool. Yeah. If there is one or two last questions we can take, and then hopefully you can start sending emails.